listeners and viewers, to another week of Education, the Teacher's Talking Terror podcast for myself, Mike.
And myself, Courtney.
Are back with a movie, our first anthology movie, too, by the way. We are here this week to talk about 1990's Tales from the Darkside, the movie, a title that I went ahead and took because if I left you to introduce this film, it wouldn't have happened. What's it called again?
It hasn't even been 12 hours since I watched it.
I know. I noticed you watched it.
I still couldn't remember.
It's a mouthful. It is. The motion picture rendition of a horror sci-fi kind of anthology from the 80s, Tales from the Darkside. Twilight Zone did the same thing. Of course, Twilight Zone was a much more successful anthology series that came out with a movie in the 80s called Twilight Zone, the movie. So this is kind of like the unofficial sequel to Creepshow 2. I know that all of this is way over your head, but
I've heard of Creepshow, though.
Creepshow and Creepshow 2 were a collaboration of George Romero and Stephen King. Pretty successful, again, an anthology. But, that was more of like a comic book kind of feel. So it didn't have that wraparound prologue, epilogue like this one did. But George Romero and Stephen King were involved in this movie as well as a screenplay writer and then kind of story creator of the story. So here we go. Tales from the Darkside, the movie. A prologue, which
yes,
I mentioned last week. I enjoy a prologue in an anthology because it gives you a wraparound story and a reason for the stories instead of just jumping into these almost like episodic, kind of feel where there's no connection. And so we meet Betty, played by Deborah Harry, lead singer of Blondie. Again, all of this just complete jargon to you.
I'll just smile and nod, like, yeah.
You're like, Deborah Harry and Blondie, yeah, big fans.
Love her.
But she just real chill. It seems to know everybody, super polite. She's doing a little shopping. We get home and we hear something kind of in a pantry closet kind of area. As we cut to the door, we see like an old like whisk broom in the corner. We're like, this woman's a witch.
Yeah.
It's real subtle too. It's just she's a witch. It's not like she's hocus pocusing or have a cauldron or anything. She's like kidnapped this kid and she's gonna cook him.
Poor Timmy.
Yeah, she's gonna cook him. She's got him chained up and she's gonna cook him. She gave him a book to read. She keeps feeding him chocolate chip cookies like she's trying to fatten him up. Because like I said, she's going to cook a child.
But not before he tells her these stories.
Yeah, because she's read all these stories. And so, like you said, he wants to share, like, hey, let me tell you about my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to Timmy here. Not a lick of fear in the kid.
No. No.
You're about to be cooked and eaten. And he's like, I got a story to tell you. So, and that's the prologue. That's how we kick off this trilogy of completely unrelated stories. The only thing is that they come from a book called Tales from the Darkside. And the first story we get is Lot 249. Tell us about Lot 249.
Okay, so we've got a college student who has, I'm sure any of you, done a group project. He has been let down, kind of screwed over by two other classmates. And it's ruined his chances of moving forward.
Yeah, for this like this prestigious scholarship.
Yeah. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to murder him. I'm going to just bring back a mummy and murder them.
Yeah, because Bellingham is the dude's name. And he's a weird guy.
Yes.
And he collects things, which isn't weird, but what he collects is like ancient relics and it's so you're right, this huge box shows up and it's this big sarcophagus.
Yeah. So Susan, one of the students, her brother had kidnapped him, and he's like, give them, and this part I finished late last night.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God, you can't even remember the movie, yes, let alone the title.
I know. And I remember,
I think
am I skipping over? Because I remember... This is going
to bode well for you, the grade that you're giving, I bet.
No, I did enjoy the next one a lot. And so Andy is like all mad because his sister and friend have been killed.
Yeah, Andy. And, just backtrack it just a little bit. Andy is the roommate of Bellingham.
Yes.
And the brother of... It's kind of the brother of the girl.
Yes.
Who is dating Bellingham's like nemesis for this scholarship. Yeah, and she had stolen this like ancient relic from the college museum, but because everybody knew Bellingham was into this stuff, everybody assumed he stole it, which is why he lost out on the scholarship.
Yeah.
Even though he was like the poor college kid, and the other kid was like, just silver spoon in his mouth kind of guy. It was all about winning for this guy. It wasn't about whether he needed the scholarship. Because he even said, he goes, I don't need the scholarship. I'm going to be backpacking across Europe anyway. I'll just buy a car with the money. And so it's pretty shady, really. And so, like, skipped ahead just a little bit, gets this mummy, cuts it open, in kind of a gross scene, really, as they're like cutting open it. But basically, he finds stuffed inside this mummy, amongst flowers and myrrh and things like that, like the instructions to awaken the mummy. And so he reads them off, and then this mummy comes to life, and it goes to Lee. Lee's the guy's name. Goes to Lee and Susan's place, and murders them both.
Yeah, like slices her back open.
Yeah.
I mean, shoves the flowers in there.
Pulls the brain out of Lee's nostrils. Like, it's everything he's been treated to as a mummy, he's doing to these guys.
Yeah. And so Andy is going to set Billingham on fire.
Yeah.
And so he's got him all taped up and everything. And Billingham's like trying to remember how to bring this mummy back to life because Andy's been making fun of him. Like, yeah, you killed him, not the mummy, blah, blah, blah. And so we kind of go through a little back of, you can see the mummy coming up behind Andy.
Right, yeah.
Andy
missing him. Like, it's this, because he's like broken the legs off of it, like he's basically made it pretty immobile. It's just crawling across the floor.
It's got one leg and one arm just like reaching, and then that arm is missing some fingers.
Yeah.
And he finally, like, towards the end, he just can't get himself to kill Billingham. Because he can't murder him.
Right. Because he's not a killer. Like, he's angry at Bellingham for killing his sister and his best friend, but he himself cannot go that extra mile to actually murder the guy. And so he does read, he burns what he thinks is the parchment that controls the mummy.
Yeah.
Comes to turn out, Bellingham swapped it out.
Yeah.
And what happens when Bellingham
brings back from the dead the two that were killed by the mummy, Susan and Lee.
Yeah, his sister and his best friend.
Yeah, and they make their way to Andy's. And
they hear
I was gonna say, this is just where he opens like they're just greeted by him, right?
Right. Yeah. Opens the door, and then there's his mummified sister and best friend, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah. They're like, he says hi.
That is the key about this as an anthology, is obviously it's telling 3 complete stories.
Yeah.
So they do go fairly quick. Fun little fact about this when I was reading. This is I don't know if you recognize Julianne Moore. She played Susan. but this was her like motion picture debut.
Okay.
And she admitted that early on in her career, she never read the entire script. She only read for her lines, just, to memorize her parts. And so she didn't realize until she was on set that she was going to be mummified at the end of this, because all she did was memorize her lines. And so that day was like, all right, it's time for makeup. and so this was kind of fun, just piece of trivia to read, because she had no idea that she was going to have to go into like zombie makeup. So, and again, that's the end of the first one. We cut back to the house, and Betty the witch is, basically every time we get in between a story, it's getting a little bit closer to cooking Timmy time.
Yes.
He's got another story. Another story. Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. And the second one is called The Cat from Hell.
Which I think all cats are from.
This one is, the story was written by Stephen King. The screenplay was written by George Romero. This might be my favorite of the three.
This is my favorite. As you can tell, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because, which I watched these all late last night.
Yeah.
And I don't know. This is the one that I could keep my eyes open through. Like the others, I was like, okay,
I do like the third one. I just think the surprise of the third one is fun, but this one is probably the most polished.
Yeah.
Because again, you're only dealing with two actors.
Yeah.
And so in the second one, we've got this old man, and he's hired a hitman, basically.
Yeah.
And the hitman shows up, and what's the job is, you got to kill this cat.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll choke the cat right here, now. Bring him.
You got to kill this cat. To which the Holston, the hitman, is like, what? Almost like, this is ridiculous. Like, kill a cat. This is easy.
Yeah.
But come to find out, it's not as easy as he thinks.
Right.
The old man is explaining, that, this cat has killed 3 other people that used to live in this house. Killed my sister, killed her friend, killed the butler. This cat's just evil. Like, it's just, and we get cutaways on how he's killed the others, like stopping the breathing of the friend. Mm-hmm. It's like there's, we get those little throwbacks, which are fun.
Yeah.
But it's the old man Drogon. He feels like I'm next. I'm the only one left. This cat's gonna kill me. And so it kind of spins a little weird of like, Drogon owns a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
And he's so paranoid about this cat that he's like okayed production of this new drug that kills cats.
And they killed thousands of cats in the testing. Nowadays you see no animals harmed in the making of this. It's thousands of cats were harmed.
Secretly. This isn't something that's going to go to market.
Right.
This is just something that he's okayed. But yeah, he's convinced that this cat is pure evil. And so Halston, of course, he doesn't believe the story. But I mean, the dude's going to pay him $100,000 to kill this cat.
Yeah, I would try to.
And so, he just, fine. You leave. I'll stay. I'll get this cat. This cat will die. That's no problem. So we get, pun intended. We get a cat and mouse chase. Only the cat is the mouse.
Yeah.
Where he's chasing this cat around, and he's, trying to calm himself down as he's trying, he's being outsmarted and outwitted by this cat.
Yes.
The cat does eventually kill him. Holston climbs down his throat.
Yeah. And this is just what you see, when he's laying on the ground and you just see all the waves just going through his belly and stuff. It's oh my goodness.
I know. It's so good. But yeah, so kills Holston, the hitman. So that's the 4th victim.
Yeah.
Drogon comes back to the house the next day to assuming that
Yeah.
he's killed the cat, comes in, he finds Holston's body like just mutilated and dead right in the middle of the floor, right there in the foyer. So he's, oh no, and then the cat crawls out of Holston's mouth.
Yeah.
Which gives the old man in the wheelchair a heart attack.
Right.
And claims him as the fifth victim. It's like, it's such a tight little film, a tight little story, well made. It's just fun. Because you have two actors and a cat.
Yeah.
And
because the others are shown for their death and that's it. So
and so it's just a well paced, well written, fun little story. I would not want to see a full movie of it. You know what I mean?
No.
It wouldn't hold up, but it's one of those things that fits perfectly in an anthology like this.
Yeah.
And so there we go. There's story 2. Poor Timmy is not convinced. I always forget her name. Betty? Yeah.
Yes.
He's not convinced Betty to let him go, but he's got another story to tell. And this, of course, leads us into the third. And she'll like this one because this one's a love story.
Yeah, and this is the one from the cover. Yeah.
And I do like this story. I think the second one is the most fun, but I think this one, I like both actors in this, James Remar and Radon Chong. And I just think the twist on this one is kind of fun. And so this one's called Lover's Vow. What's this one about? Do you even remember?
I should have taken the cat one. No, I think I've got this one good enough.
Good.
Maybe. So we've got Preston, who's a struggling artist, and there's this gargoyle that peeks down, and so the gargoyle, I don't know, is not that important at that time, I guess.
No.
So he's called to meet a few blocks away because he's going to meet with his agents. Unfortunately, the agents are not calling to meet him and tell him that, hey, people want to buy your stuff. It's your artwork isn't that great.
No,
so,
right.
So rejected. He's getting drunk and walks home with a friend that night, and along the way he sees him and his friends see this monster, and one of them had shot it. I don't remember, was it Preston or one of the friends? The friend, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Not important.
Right.
But then just coming back at Preston, shoots this gargoyle, takes its hand off, and then shoots his head off, and it's just a clean slice. I mean, just
you can tell, just pure strength.
Yeah. And
it's not stone. It's when we say gargoyle,
alien looking kind of.
It's monstrous. It's not the non-stone form of a gargoyle.
And the gargoyle walks up to his friend and he's like, "I'll spare you your life if you can make me a promise." And it's the guy didn't even hesitate. It's you just sold your soul to the devil here, buddy, because you have no clue what he's gonna ask you. He's like, "Yeah, I promise. And he's like, "You can never mention this to anyone. Tell anyone that you saw me. Just basically, I wasn't here." And so he's like,
happen.
"Yeah, okay, yeah, he's like, "Cross your heart," and it is. He just slashes his heart a little bit, and it's like, oh.
Do you? I'm not asking you if you would sell your soul to the devil. But if you had to keep a promise, never to tell someone of something, could you do it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in a situation like this where, you're not, there's no notice of what the repercussions are, but it does seem like a fairly simple promise.
Just don't talk about me and you can stay alive.
Don't talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Although my problem would be my thing is if someone tells me something, they tell me and they tell Casey. Like,
Yeah.
I tell Casey everything.
Right.
So
yeah,
which
you would be able to
we will find out. So I guess it was Preston's friend that got killed. Sorry, I said Preston did. But Preston runs away, meets this beautiful alone lady in another area. Corolla. Okay. I was like, did I say that right?
Yeah.
And she's lost while she was waiting for a taxi.
Yeah, it's like right there in the same neighborhood, just like around the corner.
Yeah.
He was trying to flee the building that he was in and runs into this woman.
Yeah, so they both head back to Preston's apartment where they get intimate, and
because why not? It's
you just saw your friend get killed. Like,
yeah, if nothing turns you
steam off. Your chest was just cut open, but go ahead and let some steam out, bud.
Now, it always seems funny to me in 80s movies, and I know this was 1990, but it's that same era of even movies in general. Now, in the town we live in, there's no taxis. So,
right.
But I've hailed a taxi before. And obviously in today's world, you just grab your Uber app and call for Uber. But when you're hailing a taxi, you stay on the street and you just wait for one to drive by. And you walk until you try to walk to a more, I won't say populated area, but a busier intersection, a busier street, and you just flag down a taxi. But yeah, it seems like in the movies they're always like, just call for a taxi. I wouldn't know how to do that.
I wouldn't either. Like, unless it's like the reliable cab in Canton.
Yeah. Like, come back to my apartment and make a phone call for a taxi. Like, the city you live in, like, it has big buildings. There's taxis around. Just call for a taxi. Because, a matter of fact, later on, the dude's agent, which we'll get to, like, he's like taxis passing him left and right.
Yeah.
But come back. Yeah, so nice try, Preston. This whole, just come back to my apartment and call for a taxi. He had ulterior motives. For sure.
Yeah.
And, they worked out for him. So, but Corolla was fine with it too. Or Carola or whatever her name is.
Yeah. So life gets better for him.
Yeah, immediately.
For Preston. Yeah. I mean, he becomes successful. But Carola she's got connections. She's got the ties.
Yeah, like, I've got a friend in an art gallery. Maybe they'll show your stuff. Well, what art gallery is that? The hottest one in town. Like, no problem.
And so then they go on. They've got 2 children. They're married. They just are living this life.
Yeah, it's like 10 years later.
Yeah.
We cut like way ahead.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Preston is still just like haunted by this gargoyle's presence. Like, not presence, but memories, I guess you should say. Because he's kept it to himself. He hasn't shared it with anyone. So,
yeah.
And I do get that. Like, 10 years later, that is a hard secret to keep.
But you kept it for 10 years.
I know. It's like, dude, just take it to your grave by now.
Right.
Come on, 10 years.
You've gone 10 years without sharing. Why? What would cause you to be like, I got something to tell you?
Yeah.
Like, if you've got a secret, even if it's something as seemingly innocent as this one, if you've got a secret that you've kept from your spouse for 10 years...
Just keep it.
They're going to be upset when you reveal it.
Yeah. And...
Even if
Corolla was very upset.
Yeah, because everything in his life has gone great.
Yeah.
And, and so they're, having a moment and he's like, I've got to tell you, there's something I haven't told you. 10 years ago, blah, 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 the gargoyle.
Yeah.
And she gets up and you can tell that she's kind of taken aback. Like the look on her face is disappointment. And at first you're thinking because... It sounds like absolute insanity.
Yeah, like you're crazy, dude.
A gargoyle.
Yeah.
But she turns around and yells at him, like, you promised you'd never tell.
Yeah, and her voice kind of starts to warp a little bit, too, like, into the gargoyle's voice. And she turns into the creature that
right
is
there
a killer.
He doesn't run. He just stands and watches.
Yeah, he's in shock.
And it's a pretty cool transformation
and
scene.
It is. And this is how I know I probably wouldn't make it long, because I do tell Casey everything. So if Casey were the gargoyle, I'm out of luck.
Right. But yeah, so, all practical effects, no CGI. She transforms and like her back rips open. She tears her face off. Like it's kind of a cool.
Yeah, her fingers, like she puts her hands up to cover her face, and they just shoot out.
And he's watching all of this, not running, like no fear. Well, just more frozen.
Yeah,
he hears screams from the kids' bedroom, because his kids share a room together. He hears screams from their room. Turns around, to almost like he's going to go check on them. Well, they come to the door. They're also gargoyles.
Yeah.
Because if you impregnate a gargoyle, like, sorry, the Punnett Square is going to go in the gargoyle's favor. They're not like half human, half gargoyle.
Right.
They're just
full
gargoyle. And so she basically was like, this is what happens. You did it. You promised you'd keep a secret, and you didn't, and like rips his throat out. His, like, the agent he's left, like he's downstairs trying to hail a cab. He hears the crashing because she grabs the kids and flies out the window. Mm-hmm. And then the scene ends with the camera panning up. They're sitting on like the top of the building as the gargoyle trio, and they're back to frozen in stone, and that's and they just look sad, like, because they are, like, their life was also pretty great for 10 years. And so that's just this. It's sad that it really was a sad piece. Like the gore was kind of cool, but at the end you're like, dude, just keep your secret. Like you promised this gargoyle. And they come back literally to bite you.
Yeah. So. And so here we come to the second wraparound.
Yep.
And Betty's like, that's the best one. And he's like, no, the next one. Because he's like, this one has a happy ending. And she's like, no.
Yeah, none of those stories have
none of them ending. Do. Which, what a sad book.
Yeah. It's a big one too.
Yeah. And it's too late. Like she's got to start cooking. It's Timmy time.
Yeah. And he's like, oh no, this next one. And then, I couldn't tell, and it doesn't matter ultimately, but it was still kind of fun that, cause he's like, oh, this next one, it's got a little boy. And he's been captured, and it's obviously he's telling his tale.
Yeah.
But one thing I didn't know is, and it doesn't matter, as he's sharing all the things about what's actually happening, did he already have the marbles in his pocket, or like was he speaking all of this into existence?
Oh, good thing. Probably had them in his pocket.
Because you know what I mean? Because he's just like, oh, and she's going to come at him, and he's going to drop marbles, and like she's not paying any lick of attention to what he's physically doing.
She's just going at him.
Comes and she falls back where it's basically she takes herself out of the equation. He gets free, shoves her into what has to be like. Who has the kitchen space for an oven like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an embalming oven, and she's just got it as like a range in her kitchen. You got some deep walls, lady. Thrusts her, and he locks her into the oven. She burns up. It's very much a Hansel and Gretel kind of feel.
Yeah.
And grabs the pack of cookies and looks right into the camera to break the fourth wall. And don't you love a happy ending? And then that's the end of our story.
Yes.
That's the end of our story.
So this one did have a happy ending. Timmy got away.
Yeah, Timmy got away. Which I figured he would, because it's like, you aren't going to like murder and cook a child in 1990.
Yeah.
So we've watched movies recently, though.
Yes.
Where they have eaten children, but not this one. So really a lot of stars in this movie. Deborah Harry, Matthew Lawrence went on to have a decent career, Steve Buscemi, Julianne Moore, Christian Slater. William Hickey, he's the old man in The Cat from Hell one. He's in a lot of things. David Johansen was more well known as a musician for a group called the New York Dolls. And then he spun off from there and did a solo act as a guy named Buster Poindexter. But like that was his like 80s music career. You know, you got James Remar, Radon Chong. Like, you've got some decent talent in this movie for sure. So that was it. That was Tales from the Dark Side of the movie. Did you like it?
I did. The first one was the only one that I don't know, I couldn't just click with, kind of. I really liked The Cat from Hell just because I felt like the atmosphere in it was really good. Like the dark, the shadows, just the creepiness of the old man and the way that he talked just so frigidly. I really liked that one.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I would say Cat from Hell was probably my favorite as well. It just, I thought Lover's Vow told a better story. Because Cat from Hell really wasn't much of a story.
Yeah.
Kill that cat. But I thought that was just a fun piece. So, but yeah, that's, I don't know. I remember this being a little better when I'd seen it before. So I was almost like, oh man, you know, like the quality of the recording wasn't the best. I'm like, when you text me last night, like, what's the name of that again? I'm like, oh, she's going to cram it in. So it's not really in a matter of like she's going to enjoy it. She's just going to cram it in there. But I'm like, we'll see what happens. So what grade would you give it?
I'm going to give it... See, because I did like the last two a lot more, I'm going to kind of let them curve the grade maybe a little bit.
It's fine.
I'm going to go with like a C+, just because I did enjoy the last two.
Yeah.
The cat one and specifically, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with C. Like it's a fine movie. I've seen other anthologies. This isn't the best horror film we've seen. This isn't even in the top half of the best films we've seen. But we've seen worse. And we've seen worse with a larger budget and a longer runtime.
Yes.
So I would especially with this, a lot of times anthologies, each section is directed by someone different. And this is the same director all throughout. So kudos to him because he did tell 3 separate stories, but with three separate vibes too. You know, they all like the lighting and the cinematography of all 3 of them were much different, and so that took some chops. But it's still a C for me. Like it's fine. If it's on and nothing else is on, I'd watch it. You know, but it's not one I'm going to go hunt down. So it is what it is. So Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. I got some comments on YouTube we need to subscribe to. We need to get to. But yeah, Christine M. Hale on YouTube is still just killing it with her comments. I got several I need to get to. But yeah, she left 5 recently. She recommended that we get a Letterboxd account, which we have now. Deducation. I think it's Deducation Podcast. I'm about to check that out. Yeah, let me check. Deducation. It's just Deducation. Oh. So, are you familiar with what Letterboxd is?
I'm not really. I just looked at like what we did, and where you can see all of the movies that we watched and everything.
Yeah, you can. It's really a platform. I won't call it social media, but it's social media-ish.
Okay.
Platform where people can go and leave reviews for their movies. They can create lists of their favorite movies. You can follow other people. You could follow other people's lists. Like you can interact that way. But you could create a wish list a watch list. You can like them. You can tag them. Like it's a way to interact with cinema a lot. One of my favorite features, because I've had a personal Letterboxd account for quite a while now, is after I watch a movie, I'll log it and it keeps track of all the new movies I've seen, as well as a diary of when I've watched them. And so it's kind of fun in that regard. If you're kind of I get collector in a sense, like none of it matters, you know. But if I go look at my at my diary here, like I watched, like my wife and I just sat on the couch and Saturday and like literally did nothing. Like
I love that.
I watched 4 movies on Saturday. Like we had things that we needed to do, but we're just like, you know what? The kids are upstairs doing their thing. We just sat and all day long. I got up and made dinner, and otherwise we just sat. We watched Armageddon. I watched Tales from the Darkside on my iPad. We watched Miss Congeniality. We watched Baby Driver. Like just sat. Like we just sat, and we're like, oh, we'll get our stuff done tomorrow. But it's like I can go back through my diary, and I could look at like I watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've watched 9 movies already this month. It gives you like you get a year in review.
Yeah,
it's it's fun. It is, and then you got your list. That's where I keep track of my like Halloween lists.
Okay.
Horror of October. I've been doing it since 2018. But it's just a fun little way to like create. And so we do, I know I'm going long-winded here. We do have a Letterboxd account for Deducation. It is just Deducation. And so if you're listening and want to give us a follow, I'll put a link in the description. And so, join, give us a follow. Right now, it's pretty, what I want to do is go back through our episodes and cut to the end to see our grades. And I would like to review the movies like that we did by just simply giving our grades and then a link to the episode. Like, not that that's going to create this, like, just the swarm of new fans, but it's just another way to interact. So, yeah we're on Deducation. I'm going to log Tales from the Darkside right now. Or we're on Deducation. We're on Letterboxd as Deducation. And so what is... Let's see. This was a shuffle.
Yes, so it's your turn.
My turn. All right. Well, I don't know. I couldn't remember what week it was. What do I want to do? I mentioned it before. I don't think there's... Oh, I got 2 I want to pick from now. Let's watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
I've been wanting to watch. It was on my short list from before. This movie is so brutal. But yeah, we're gonna watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Is what we are going to watch, and you've never seen it because I know you haven't. So
I have not.
Next week with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Social media wise, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Again, I'll put a link to the Letterboxd account as well. You can always email us at I think it's deducationpodcast@gmail.com. Comment, like, subscribe, all those things you're supposed to do. But we enjoy your company. Like I think we got a good thing going here. Like I look at, I look at our videos, and like last week, I walked with a zombie. Like we got 78 views on our YouTube video. It hadn't been up a week yet.
Wow.
So I know some people are, oh, that's 78. When Evil Lurks, 95. House on a Haunted Hill, 86. People like this old, like, they like the new stuff, they like the old stuff. I think, honestly, it's, if there's a cult following for a film, people will check it out, like Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
If they're new horror films, people are going to check it out. And I think if there's just not much content out there, you know what I mean? Like we did, for instance, I Walked with a Zombie. There's probably not a lot of internet stuff on that movie. So people that are fans of that movie, when they find some stuff, are like, oh, this is kind of cool. Whereas movies like Saw and the Scream movies, it's like Underwater, that Kristen Stewart movie, like 9 views, you know? Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's, The Reading, although that movie was a dud.
Yeah.
8 views. But then, like I said, I'm like that. Like 6 days ago, that episode posted at 78 views already. So, yeah, Tales from the Darkside will be up soon. And otherwise, we'll be back next week with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Courtney, you got anything to leave us with?
Stay warm out there. I don't know if your house is like our house, but our thermostat set at like 67 and it just continuously runs at 62 because it's so cold.
That is chilly. We set ours at 69, mainly because it's a big house.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it's 69 downstairs, it's probably a little cooler upstairs. And the kids are, plus, the kids are upstairs. But it stays, like, I think we also have a quiet furnace. It's like, either it's running all the time and I drown it out, or it doesn't run as often as I think it do.
Yeah, ours is definitely like overworking itself to where yesterday I finally just turned it down to 64. And I was like, if it gets to 64, let's just give her a break.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely earned it though, because it is cold outside.
Yeah.
You think there'll be school tomorrow?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think the high's 10. So.
Yeah, it is. However, it's all about what time the kids are at the bus.
Yeah.
Because.
I mean, it'll be pretty cold then.
Yeah, 6 a.m. it's at its low. At 23 below zero at about 7.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see. Well, for another episode of Education, we'll see you guys next week. I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And Texas Chainsaw Massacre's coming your way.